Hi, everyone. Mike Allegre, FullAccessSports.com, and going into Game 6 for the Willamette Bearcats, ranked number 21 on the D3Football.com poll, and fresh off a 50-26 win at Lewis and Clark. The wagon wheel stays in Salem for another year. In fact, what is that, 10 of the last 11 years we've kept the wagon wheel?
Yeah, it's either 10 of 11 or it's the last 13 of 14. Or it's been here for a while, and we're happy to have it.
Lewis and Clark, always a good... You look at how they played us. We were up quickly. They came back, and, of course, on the strength of Keith Welch, the way he played, utilized all of his running backs, 3 or 4 of his receivers. They just kept inching back into the game in that fourth quarter, but our defense held them back.
Yeah, Keith's a great player, and he's a guy. And we talked about this last week that he's a guy that can throw it, he can run it, and he threw for a ton of yards. And they're a team that just doesn't give up. They don't quit, so they keep going. And you're right. We got ahead. We played from the front, the whole game, and as they kept inching back defensively, we came up with a timely stop that really helped. And it's one that the team, Keith, really good. We kind of limited. We took control a little bit of his ability to run, but he's a two-headed monster that he can light you up through the air, and he did that. He had a great game throwing the ball.
We don't want to be too individualist, but you do have to mention Josh Dean, Northwest Conference Student Athlete of the Week on offense, Jack Nelson on defense. The second time we've had a couple of Bearcats earn those honors. And we look at what Josh did. 7 touchdown passes in one game. He breaks a record that he was the co-tiee with. And the way he plays, the way he throws, it's not effortless, but it certainly looks pretty easy.
Yeah, Josh, he's a guy that, from last year, he prepares very, very well every week. He comes out, Coach Bills does a great job with him, and he tries to look for ways for himself to get better. He's very critical of his performance, and when he makes a mistake, he has a tendency to learn from it and not make the same mistake twice. So we're really pleased with him. And Jack on the other side, defensively, I mean, those two guys, you couldn't ask for anything more as far as offensive and defensive leaders, and really happy and proud of both those guys. Jack's a fantastic player, and Jack a little more vocal than Josh is, and Josh a little more cerebral. I guess it's a linebacker and a quarterback, so I guess you kind of expect that.
Sounds like John Horner a little bit when he played, but we look at the 7 touchdown passes, 2 different receivers catching 2, including Derek Traeger with an unbelievable amount of yardage. Again, certainly averaging about, 112 yards a game right now. And then, of course, Jack with 14 tackles, 9 of those unassisted. 2 receivers with 2 touchdowns each. You spread it around quite a bit. Lewis and Clark really didn't, I don't think, recovered very well despite the score.
And that's what's tough is that we have a good group of receivers, and somebody's always going to be open. If we can give Josh enough time, he'll find the open guy, and they'll have good days. And with Derek's one of the premier receivers in the conference. So, and we knew that going in, and somebody asked me who's going to be a surprise, and he's not really a surprise for us. We knew he was really, really good. You just had to get an opportunity to go, and he's making the most of it. Conference play started. He's had 2 fantastic games back-to-back, and like I said, we have a good core of receivers, and if our O-line gives Josh time, he has the ability to find the open guy, and somebody's going to have a good day.
Right. And we're going to bring it home and see if we can have another good day. 3 straight home games again. We started off with number 17 ranked PLU. Barely got out of Pacific, beat Pacific 17-16 on a field goal with about 2 seconds to go in that ball game. Pacific played them and maybe at times outplayed them. And when I look at PLU, I said we could take the last 15 years, run highlight tapes of scoring, especially in that second half, have a 40-minute special of how we almost beat them and how they almost beat us or did beat us.
Yeah, PLU, it's one of those guys that when we play this game, everything goes out the window. It's 2 teams that are really going to play hard, that a ton of mutual respect for each program. And when people come and play, that they're going to leave it on the field, and where people are ranked and what history, what you're guaranteed of is 2 teams that are going to come out and play at a very, very high effort, right. Have the ability to go, be a clean game full of hard hits, and it's going to be exciting. And it's every game that's happened in the past, that really doesn't matter, because once we get together, who knows what's going to happen, but it will be a ball game.
When we look at the Lutes, they come in averaging about 200 yards less per game than we do. We are over 500. They're just over 300. They give up 22 points a game, score about 27. We score 49 and give up about 26 points a game. If you look at all of our numbers, and if you look, we look very good on paper, and we've looked good on paper before. PLU tends to not look at that paper.
No, they don't. And the way their style of play is a little bit different than ours. So they control the clock a lot more than we do. The way that their offense works, it's they don't go as fast as we do, but they're very, very efficient. And it's one of those things, if you take a look at offensive efficiency, even if they're not getting the yards or the points that we get, they're very, very efficient. So in the plays that they have on offense, they execute. Their yards per play is good. Their points per play is good. They're a very efficient offense, and they just control the clock. They do it a little bit differently, and it seems to work for them, and that keeps their defense real fresh. So it's one that, you got to throw the stats out.
Right.
That
doesn't mean anything.
That doesn't mean anything. It's one that, again, the people who don't know the programs in some place could look at it and think it's a certain type of ball game, but I can promise you that the way the stats run right now, it is not indicative of the way the game's going to go. It's going to be way different than that, so it's going to be awesome.
Coach, when we look at what you said, offense and defense, look at our offense, look at their defense. When you see when they two face each other, what gives you concern on their defense?
On the defensive side, those guys move around a ton. They play with great effort. They bring a ton of pressure. If you watch them play, they're confusing to break down, although, Coach McCord's got them going as far as they have definite assignments. When the ball's in the air, they're hawks. They go get the ball. They create confusion. They create turnovers. They get after the quarterback. So it's one of those things that we have to be exacting in what we do for the types of pressure that they bring to our offense.
And when we put the ball in their hands and our defense, how we match up, how we face, I think we just are a lot better this year.
Well, I tell you what, Scott's an amazing football coach up there too, and he's got a great offensive mind, and they always come ready to play. And he's been doing this a long time, and it's one that we've been playing PLU a long time, and Scott's been running the show up there, and as far as that's concerned, he's got a bunch of things up his sleeve, is what we know. They seem to never forget about some of the plays they have, and they're going to show our defense a ton of formations, a ton of motions. Wouldn't be surprised at all if you see a little trickery in there, but that's kind of what we expect out of those guys.
One of the things that has been a hallmark, like you said, is the trickery, but also just when these two teams play, how do you prepare your guys, even the guys that have never seen PLU play, how do you prepare them for a team like PO? Because dynamically, they're a lot different.
Yeah, and it's one that we don't prepare much different from week to week, just because our focus isn't on them. The coaches game plan, move forward, but what we do in practice is we really take a look at what we're doing and make sure we're maximizing our effort, get the looks that we need in practice from our scout teams as we go. But all in all, what we do is we let the guys play. Coaches come up with a plan, and then we focus most of our attention to our effort and execution. And if we can do that, we'll be in all the ball games we play.
And just real quick, you have to play them one at a time. I know you don't like to talk about the future, but the last three here at home, and we talk about that. This week, PLU, then number 2 ranked Linfield, then an upstart and always strong Pacific team. You've really got your hands full for the next 3 weeks here at McCulloch Stadium.
Yeah, it's a heck of a ride, and you got to play those teams sometime, and we get to have them in order, and it's one that as you go in the next few weeks of football for us is going to be awesome. It's going to kind of show us where we are as a program as we move forward, playing some of the best teams in the country. PLU, one of the best teams in the country. Linfield, one of the best teams in the country, and Pacific. I mean, they're one loss to PLU. Really, I mean they're one of the best teams in the country. So I think the Northwest Conference, I tell people that right now, the Northwest Conference is one of the strongest conferences in Division III football, and we have a giant challenge ahead of us in the next few weeks. Absolutely, it's going to be back to back to back, and it's but that's why you play. We want to be in this position.
That's right. Well, Coach, good luck this weekend here at home with PLU. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, and the first one will be PLU. The Lutes coming down to take on the Bearcats, and we'll be on the air at 1:15 and about 1:30 on the kickoff. With head coach Glen Fowles, I'm Mike Allegre. Thanks for joining us, everyone, here on FullAccessSports.com.